Welcome back for another episode of Branching Out with Sierra. This is the first episode of 2026, and I thought we'd kick it off by talking about how we should be starting off our new year. I don't know about everybody else, but after the holiday break, for me specifically, I've taken 2 weeks off. I feel like we're supposed to come back and get right to it. We're supposed to be moving quickly. We're supposed to be responding to people quickly. Our days are supposed to be packed to the gills, and we are starting quickly working on our goals. All the goals that I've been talking about for so long, about setting up your year for success, making sure you're intentional about your goal setting. You know I talk about goals all the time. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about the leadership tone that you set in January and how that lasts all year long. Because as important as goals may be, I actually don't think all of the work towards your goals should start at the very beginning of the year. I think January really needs to focus on setting that tone. People are watching you and your behavior and really their expectation of what you're going to be able to produce is based off of January. So I want to shift the thinking a little bit from goals to capacity in this episode and thinking about the capacity that you have in January. So I know in a previous episode, I was talking about mapping out on my wall the visual of the year and how it was so valuable for me to see those periods of time where I could probably predict I would be burning out. There was way too many presentations, a lot of human interaction, and my social battery drains quickly. What am I going to do about those times? Well, that is really the concept I want to dig deeper into, but from a leadership perspective, as you're thinking about managing your team and people looking to you to set the tone, what conversations can you have, what behaviors can you display that focus more on starting kind of like the tortoise and the hare, starting off a little bit more slowly so that you can have greater impact later in the year. Because the pressure starts fast. You've got adrenaline racing. You feel like you have to prove something. You're refreshed, rejuvenated, and like you have to be visibly busy all the time, showing that you're productive. And so it might look like you're leading well because you're busy. But that doesn't mean you're being strategic. And so I think that sitting down and having some explicit conversations with the team about capacity and how they really want to approach the year, but also really considering what you're modeling is a better approach. Burnout can actually start first thing in the new year when you are refreshed and rejuvenated. I was just having a conversation in the car with Matthew about my January, and I knew January was going to be a difficult month because it was a continuation of some things that I kicked off in December, but also the kickstart of a bunch of new locations that I've taken on in the new year. And so it's going to be a lot, and it's been really important that I protect my admin time to make sure that I have adequate time to prepare. But I think it's important that we also consider sustainability over time. So if I kick off too strong in January, I'm burnt out by the end of January. Here we are at the new year. I thought I had a fresh start, and I'm going into February already having ran myself into the ground. So I know that capacity has to come before goals sometimes. That's the truth. I know goals are important. We have to have a vision. We have to have a direction that we're headed in. But capacity really looks to the durability that we have. So what could the questions look like when you're talking to your team? What is sustainable? Sitting down and having a team meeting in January and asking, what does a healthy pace look like for our team? It was a refreshing conversation with one of my coaching clients this week who was talking about the need to hire. Now, there have been a couple of difficult hires in the past, didn't turn out exactly as hoped, but it was a performance issue. Well, now this individual is looking to hire not because of performance issues with the people she has now, but a true capacity problem, right? And because she has realized that the pace in which they're working is not sustainable. So sitting down and talking with the team about what they feel a healthy pace would look like for them. How much is on their plates right now, and is what is on their plates right now something that they feel like they can continue to do? Do they have the capacity for more? But what is already full and overflowing? And how can we take that overflow and bring someone else on, even if it's not a full-time employee, but it's outsourcing a specific task or responsibility to take that off their plate? That helps us to better judge what we can take on, what we can do moving forward. So there's the time aspect, there's the amount of energy you have, the emotional bandwidth. If you find yourself doing things every day that are draining you, you have things going on outside of work that you're bringing in, it weighs on you quickly. And that's why I'm saying burnout can happen very early in the year despite having that break. So if you don't account for capacity, your goals are going to cost you more than you intended to pay, and you're going to get off track with your goals early on when you thought you were attacking them and maybe going to achieve them sooner that way. So even having the conversation, where is your capacity already stretched before we even kick this year off, I think is helpful. But that's the conversation that can take place, but they're also watching your behaviors. So I had stated at the beginning of the year, you might have immediate responses. Maybe you've cleared out that inbox and you're ready to roll and you have quick response times. You're constantly available for people. You have this open door policy. You're available. You want people to come to you. You have a full calendar, whatever it may be. All of these things people are watching. So what can we do to set a more healthy tone? So when you're modeling the behavior that you want to see, they're picking up on it and they're behaving in the same way, keeping capacity in mind. So can you protect some white space in your calendar? If you see that there's white space in your calendar, what should you put there to protect it? A couple of my teams have adopted, based off of rooted focus, those deep focus times for their entire team. All right, everybody, it's on the calendar for this hour and a half or 2 hours. We're not going and knocking on one another's doors, stepping into cubicles, shouting over cubicles. We are going to each focus on what our priorities are at that time, deep focus session, and then we get back to collaborative exercises after that. So any of that white space that you find, don't automatically fill it up with a bunch of things. Think about how you can be intentional with that time and protect it in a way where it's being used for what's most meaningful. It's not just being used for busy work, right? Which we can always fill our days with. So I want you to consider, what do you want January to feel like? How does it need to look different than the way you ended 2025? What changes you need to make if you did not sit down over the holiday break and do these reflections? Really take the time to do it now and consider what you need to protect for yourself going into the new year. What norms do you want to set for your team? Do you want to have a fresh start, go in and restructure the way you're having meetings? Do you want to build in more collaborative time so that there's creative and innovative ideas coming to the surface rather than people just executing all the time? What is it that you want it to look like? But really taking the time to consider also capacity along the way. We have lots of really great ideas, but we can't execute them all at the same time. So what am I actually asking you to do? What I want to challenge you with is to name that pace for January. It doesn't have to be the pace for 2026 as a whole. Just start with January. What is that pace? What does fast enough actually mean for you? What does that actually mean for your team? And make sure you communicate it. I also want to challenge you to protect one non-negotiable, whether it's focus time or, a block of no meetings. Nobody in the office has meetings at this time. whatever that time is for you, protect that one non-negotiable on your calendar. And finally, I challenge you to model the behavior you want to see, the behavior you want to be normalized in your team, because your actions are giving other people permission to do the same thing. So be aware of the message that you're sending to the team as you kick off a new year. So those are the key things I want you to take away today. I know it's short and sweet, but by the end of January, I really want you to feel like you have set a pace that is sustainable. You've not burnt yourself out trying to prove what you're capable of, or because you are energized, you come back. And it really does take me back to running cross country. We would always have, of course, cross country, it was longer races, but we'd have people take off in the beginning. They'd be sprinting like they're running, 100-meter dash. And I'm looking at them like, oh my gosh, they're so fast. I'm really going to lose this one. But they're the same ones that have their hands on their knees and are out of breath along the course back in the woods because they took off too fast. It's the same exact concept. So set a pace that's sustainable throughout the entire year. Start it now. You could always speed up later if you realize you have more capacity. But let's start a little bit slower in 2026. And this is a reminder for myself too. I talk about these things very openly because I know that they're challenges for me. I have to bring awareness to them and try to manage my behavior as well. So hold me accountable to it. If you see that my pace is too fast in January because I'm hitting the reset button, let me know. Feel free to always give me that feedback. I do want to also touch on leadership in the wild today. So I was thinking about for this week who I wanted to highlight, and it's actually one of my collaborative partners, Dawn Schuler. And the reason I want to highlight her is I can often get caught up in email. I like email because I like having things documented to go back and reread. It's very helpful. I often do have to go back and reference things, especially because of my terrible memory. But sometimes I just kind of get trapped behind the computer and forget that you can pick up the phone and call someone, and sometimes a quick conversation is better. But she's always so good at that. There have been a couple of times when we were collaborating on something and we're going back and forth via email, and we both have very different perspectives on something. And both times she has said, why don't you just call me so we can talk about this? And I really appreciate that about her because it is true. We're able to hear tone of voice. I think sometimes she thinks I'm mad when I'm not mad at all. But we can hear tone of voice. We can both share our perspective, and then we can find that middle ground, which becomes much easier when picking up the phone. So I appreciate those people in my life who kind of pull me out of what is my norm and kind of force me to realize that there is a different way. There's a better way that we can do this. There's a more efficient way, because I consider myself to be pretty efficient. But in times like that, it is easier to just have a conversation. So Dawn is a great leader in so many different ways, but one of the ways that I want to point out her leadership is that she holds me accountable. She makes sure that when we're working together, that we're collaborative and, effectively communicating our ideas with one another, but both feeling good about how we move forward. And I appreciate that. So thank you, Dawn. Wanted to give you a shout out for that. And finally, to close out today, I definitely want to do a Leadership Unscripted. For those of you listening for the first time, this is a submission by a listener of a challenge they're facing so that I can briefly give some ideas, some feedback on what you might be able to do. So it says, my team has a few high performers who always take on too much and then crash. Sound familiar? This is why I picked this one for today. I admire their drive, but I'm worried about sustainability. How can I protect them from burnout without discouraging their initiative? It's so funny because I work with a lot of clients who wish their teammates had more initiative and want to know how to motivate them. But it's also a really big problem when you have people who take so much initiative and are driven to the point they burn themselves out and they're not doing their best work. So maybe these individuals need a reminder that doing the most isn't always best. It's doing the most meaningful work, the work that has the greatest impact. So maybe redefining expectations of what excellence could look like there. Maybe their definition of excellence is as many check marks on the list as possible, where your definition of excellence is being able to slow down and create a great product, provide a great service, and making sure that you're taking your time in doing so. So maybe shift that definition, have that conversation, see how they define success, talk about how you see success, and see if you can find some common ground there. I was also thinking about how you could intervene before the crash happens. So even just having an open conversation about, I see this pattern in you. You take on a lot, you push really hard, and then you hit a wall and you crash. What can we do to break that cycle? I want to interrupt that pattern with you. What can we do to help you through that? So try to find a way to intervene before it happens again. And what I was talking about in this episode and why it was the perfect one for this segment is that sustainability part. If you make sustainability a part of performance expectations and people know, that by saying yes to something, they're saying no to something else, that they should be taking on the most meaningful work, not just busy work, and really asking questions to make sure that what they have is sustainable. How long is this sustainable for you? What resources do you need to be able to take this on and be successful with it? So I think having a sustainability conversation with the team as a whole might help as well if you kind of set that standard across the board. And then just kind of helping to manage what makes it to them. So through your leadership, how can you manage what makes it to their plate? Maybe you're allowing too much to get to their plate. So you can certainly have conversations and help them start to set better boundaries and not take on as much. But how can you also look at the people around them and help better control what makes it to them? Make sure the things that are going to them are aligned with their strengths and are fulfilling for them, but is not too much for any one person to take on. So you could also try to support from that side as well. So those are some of my ideas, and I just thought it went so perfectly with this episode today because it is common that people, especially those type A personalities, I'm surrounded by a lot of them, work really hard and burn themselves out, and it's hard to bounce back from that. So I hope that today's episode is helpful in kickstarting 2026 for you, getting off on the right foot, having those conversations with your team very openly, but also modeling the behavior that you wish to see, not modeling way too much drive and initiative from the beginning that you can't sustain. I want to remind you that we are looking for sponsors this year. So if you are interested in getting involved in branching out with Sierra, we would love to have you. And we can design something that works for you and your business. So feel free to reach out at info@branchingoutpodcast.com. I really appreciate and value each of the listeners, and I hope that there's always one small thing that you can take away and apply to your life, whether it's leading yourself or leading others. But if you found something valuable that you'd like to share, I encourage you to share this episode with others in your life, in your network. And make sure you subscribe. Episodes come out every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. So follow us, subscribe, make sure you get those notifications and stay up to date so you can hear what content is coming out for you. If you would like to submit a challenge, feel free to shoot us an email. Again, that's info@branchingoutpodcast.com, or you can go to the website, branchingoutpodcast.com, and apply to be a guest. We're looking for a few more guests in 2026 as we book out that schedule. So thank you again. I'm so glad that you chose to join us today and listen in, and hope you found value. Until next time, keep branching out.